There have been more than 20 school shootings this year, sparking national conversations on school safety and gun reform laws. Students at Santa Fe High School in Texas returned to the site of this month's massacre on Tuesday. And at Wednesday's White House press briefing, a child asked Sarah Huckabee Sanders what the Trump administration is doing to protect children from gun violence in schools.
In high school, we recently had a lockdown drill. One thing that affects mine and other students' mental health is to worry about the fact that we or our friends could get shot at school. Specifically, can you tell me what the administration has done and will do to prevent these senseless tragedies?
I think that as a kid and certainly as a parent, there is nothing that could be more terrifying for a kid to go to school and not feel safe. So I'm sorry that you feel that way. This administration takes it seriously, and the School Safety Commission that the president convened is meeting this week, again, an official meeting to discuss the best ways forward and how we can do every single thing within our power to protect kids in our schools and to make them feel safe and make their parents feel good about dropping them off.
In last night's Eye on America segment, CBS News correspondent Adriana Diaz took us to a preschool in Arizona where teachers go through active shooter drills and kids under 5 years old practice hiding. We want to warn you, some of the images you are about to see may be disturbing.
In schools across America, the job description for teachers has changed. This is only a drill.
Who raised registration?
Thousands of teachers are now required to participate in active shooter drills like this one.
Get down, get down.
I know it's a drill, but does it feel real?
It does. It does, because you have to be in this scenario in order to act, because you can't be with the mentality, it's just a training, nothing's going to happen, because if not, you're not going to put your effort in it.
And Adriana Diaz joins me now with more on this. Adriana, the piece was so incredibly disturbing and compelling and important for people to understand when we talk about these kinds of drills, what some of these drills entail. Tell me about the reaction to your piece.
Well, Elaine, a lot of people were in shock as we were being there and watching what happens in schools across America. Now, to be clear, the fake guns weren't used when the children were present, but when the children were there, they went through lockdown drills. These are kids under 5 years old, where they were told when you hear a whistle and the teacher tells you to go hide, you run under the desk, you get as quiet as possible. I was in that room and you could hear a pin drop. It got so quiet, which was such a contrast to the noise and rambunctiousness of the day in that room with those students. But the thing is that they've gotten so good at hiding because they have grown up in this environment. So the reaction, a lot of people said they were shocked to see this, but that it was an important piece to actually shed light on what school is like today in America.
Absolutely. And from your reporting, what have you learned are some of the drawbacks and the benefits to these kinds of active shooter drills?
So a lot of parents are concerned that we're scaring kids by putting them through these active shooter drills. That's a major concern. Another is many of the shooters who are going into schools are teenagers who have been through these lockdown drills, so they know what the deal is. And so one thing that the instructor in our piece, his name is Eric Frost, he's a former deputy sheriff, he says that today what we're dealing with is the second generational shooter, no longer the first generational shooter. The first generational shooter, he said, would go into a classroom and commit these crimes. Second generational shooters, he says, are more savvy. They know what the lockdown situation will create. They know where the students will hide, so instead they're targeting different scenarios. Here's a clip from what Eric Frost had to say about this.
As America, we need to wake up, because if we're having this conversation in preschool, and preschools have been targeted, that it's so hard to teach what people are going to do. And one thing that I tell people is this: active shooter scenario, you cannot expect mercy from the shooter. If somebody can come into a preschool and start shooting, they can go to anywhere and start shooting.
When a mass shooting happens and it's all over TV, do you start getting more phone calls?
I do, and the sad part about it is when I look at the mass shootings, we're always being reactive and never proactive. Our schools have to address kids being in open areas, kids being at auditoriums, has to address kids identifying the traits of active shooter.
So, I mean, when you hear that and the notion that after a mass shooting, he gets these phone calls. People don't want to necessarily think about this happening potentially in their community, let alone to their own children. But the reality, obviously, is that these mass shootings are continuing at schools on a fairly regular basis.
It seems like it's happening more and more. I mean, Friday, I reported on a mass shooting, an attempted mass shooting in a middle school in Indiana. The week prior I was in Illinois, where a mass shooting was thwarted. The week before that, Santa Fe, Texas. We were in Parkland for more than a month. It really, seems unending and like it's happening with more and more frequency, and schools don't want to be caught on their heels. So the head of this preschool said, I have this training happen at our school every month because she wants this to be fresh in people's minds. And one of the things that the instructor told us is an overarching theme that he's seeing in the more recent shootings is that they're happening in less controlled environments, in auditoriums, in the case of the Illinois school. In courtyards, in places where, in gyms, in places where students don't necessarily know what the lockdown drill would be because they normally do the lockdowns in their classrooms. So this is what he means by the fact that shooters are becoming more advanced and that the trainings need to be as advanced, if not ahead of what the shooters are doing.
It's a sobering point. Well, out of the 23 school shootings we've seen this year, have there been any kind of overarching trends?
A lot of them involve teenagers. A lot of them involve students that went to that school or currently go to that school. And a lot of them involve firearms that they either had in the home or purchased somehow illegally. But really, what the training emphasized is that there is no stereotype, there is no formula. It can be anyone. And one of the things that this instructor tried to instill in the teachers was the moment that you see a shooter, think that there's two, because there could be. Don't think that there's just a threat coming from one direction. Be aware of your surroundings.
Well, Adriana Diaz, a very important story. I know a lot of people had some really strong reactions to it, but clearly this is an issue that is unfortunately not going away. Adriana Diaz, thank you so much.
Thanks, Elaine.